To those who join in on the coolest and spookiest season of the year, there's likely an annual tradition that you have to celebrate this particular holiday. Costumes, parties, or horror-inspired insanity are what usually come to mind when you think of Halloween. But for many years, wrestling fans had their equivalent of sorts with WCW's yearly October tradition on pay-per-view, Halloween Havoc. The 12-year history of Havoc has included a few treats such as Eddie Guerrero vs. Rey Mysterio, some unwanted tricks such as Hollywood Hogan vs. The Warrior 2, and, well, the debacle that was Hogan vs. the Giant. The less said about that, the better. But one of the earliest traditions for the event, though brief, was memorable for either good or bad depending on who you'd ask, the Halloween Havoc Wheel. For 2 consecutive years, 4 different WCW stars would become a part of history by spinning a wheel with many potential match stipulations to decide what kind of battle they would engage in. While it didn't last long, it became synonymous with Halloween Havoc for many years, long after the company ceased to exist. However, the name and the infamous wheel would be given a second life within WWE, now being an annual tradition for the NXT brand to this day. Today, we reflect on the only 2 main events this infamous gimmick was used for in WCW, how WWE altered the concept for occasional episodes of their flagship program, and how it made a comeback for its developmental brand just a few years ago. So if you dare, come on up to spin the wheel and make your deal, as we look at the history of the Halloween Havoc Wheel. On the episode of 83 Weeks covering Halloween Havoc 92, Eric Bischoff claimed that the gimmicked wheel originated from the American Dream, saying, quote, "The spin the wheel make the deal thing, I believe it was a Dusty Rhodes idea. I'm pretty sure, could be wrong. I get the idea, there's intrigue, but I remember even in 1992 going, oh man, I just came out of the Team Challenge series, and I'm walking into this? This is just as corny and about as bad." The wheel would play a major part of the main event between Sting and Jake the Snake Roberts for the event, with it being built up in one of the company's infamous mini-movies of this era. The Stinger confronts Jake at a tavern before the master of the DDT explains how the wheel works.
Cut the crap! Do I have to come over there and kick your...
Sting, you don't get it, do you, man? You don't have a clue. Look around you. This is my playground. These are my people. I'm smiling, not you. It's come down to this. You see, the deal is on the wheel. At Halloween Havoc, your worst nightmare will come true. 12 of the toughest and most brutal matches in wrestling. You see, on the wheel, there's a cage match. There's a barbed wire match. There's a death match. Or there might even be a mystery match. But you see, the deal is, man, you gotta step up and spin that wheel. Once you spin it, where it stops, that's what you and I are gonna do. And what happens? Well, we both go in the ring. One man comes out. The other? Well, no.
Sting doesn't hesitate as he spins to make his deal and stares at Roberts, leading to lasers shooting out of their eyes to end the segment in an explosion because, f it, why not? As Jake mentioned, the Havoc Wheel would be loaded with various gimmick matches that could be decided, with the lineup including Texas Bull Rope, Spinner's Choice, a Russian Chain Match, Dog Collar, I Quit, Barbed Wire, Cage, Lumberjacks with Belts, a Prince of Darkness or Blindfold match, Coal Miner's Glove, and First Blood. During the pay-per-view, when Sting spins the wheel, for reals this time, it lands on the coal miner's glove match. The glove would be put on a pole when Sting and Jake faced off later in the night, as the Stinger would grab it first and use it to get the win. Though the finish wasn't perfect, after Cactus Jack helped Jake bring a snake into the ring to use against the Icon, Sting would hit Jake with the coal miner's glove, and then result in the snake biting Roberts' face, but the snake initially didn't budge. Roberts would start feeling the bite's effects and be helped to the back by Foley towards the tail end of the pay-per-view. Despite the goofiness of the wheel and booking a pole match for the final bout on the card, there was potential for the feud between Sting and Jake to continue into several more matches. However, due in storyline to the banning of snakes at ringside, but in reality for getting a lower pay than what was agreed upon under previous management, Roberts would be gone from WCW soon after. The Halloween Havoc Wheel would return the following year, now determining the stipulation for the next encounter in one of WCW's most brutal rivalries ever between Cactus Jack and Big Van Vader. As Vader appears on stage and gets to spin the wheel that has a completely different look from the '92 incarnation and make the deal, it lands on a Texas death match for the main event of the evening. The set of rules were quite different from what you'd expect in a death match, as either man would have to first be pinned and then be unable to answer the 10 count in order to lose, but after a 30-second rest period between both. On the bright side, there isn't anything on a pole this time. Despite the confusing rules set, Vader and Foley were still able to have a stiff and chaotic encounter. Both men used everything in and out of the ring to deliver as much damage as possible, but thanks to Harley Race using a taser onto Cactus's leg to keep him down, Vader emerges as the victor, with Jack getting to hit the double-arm DDT on Race for some bit of revenge. This was a definite improvement from Sting and Jake Roberts' match the year prior, and ironically, a very goofy aspect of WCW helped lead to a more serious and physical match that you wouldn't often see on the company's programming. But with Hulk Hogan arriving in 1994 and a change in creative that came with it, the Halloween Havoc Wheel would no longer be used for the events moving forward, and it wouldn't be used again for the remainder of WCW's existence. And after the WWF buyout years later, the Federation would slowly start to bring certain concepts of WCW into their own programming. The Havoc Wheel would be included, but with a completely new spin, pun not intended, on the familiar concept. In 2002, WWE would reintroduce the wheel for the first ever RAW Roulette episode on October 7th from Las Vegas. While the familiarity of spinning the wheel to decide a match stipulation would carry over, there were several changes made from WCW's tradition. The spooky-themed matches would be replaced with more traditional gimmick matches, as well as some Sin City-inspired stipulations. The other big change was that instead of it only being used for the main event, the wheel would determine the stipulations for every match on the card. The first roulette special featured Booker T defeating Big Show in a cage match, World Champion Triple H beating D'Lo Brown in a blindfold match, William Regal winning the Las Vegas Showgirl match against Goldust, Trish Stratus took the paddle on a pole from Stacy Keibler to retain the Women's Championship and brawled with Victoria afterwards. Al Snow defeating Test in a street fight. Jerry Lawler pinned Stevie Richards in a Legal in Nevada match. allowing the King to spend the night with Godfather's employees. And the main event saw Kane retaining the World Tag Team titles on his own in TLC 4 against Bubba Ray and Spike, Jeff Hardy and RVD, and Christian and Chris Jericho, before Triple H ruined the night by claiming that the Big Red Machine killed KD Vic. Thanks, Hunter. The Roulette Wheel would return in 2003, with the show taking place in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sure, let's go with it. This RAW Roulette episode went much similar to the year prior, with the one noteworthy match taking place was the company's first ever women's steel cage match, as Victoria defeated Lita thanks to Matt Hardy slamming the door in Lita's face when she tried to escape. After a several-year absence, RAW Roulette would return in 2008 when the show took place at the Mohegan Sun Arena within the casino resort. And off and on for the next several years, the wheel would be used for occasional episodes of RAW Roulette, plus Sin City SmackDown in early 2012. Funnily enough, what most may not remember from the famous CM Punk Pipe Bomb promo was that it closed out the 2011 edition. The last RAW Roulette special took place in 2013, with the major gimmick matches of the night including Randy Orton defeating Cesaro with The Miz as guest referee, a body slam challenge between Big Show and Alberto Del Rio going to a no contest as Schuster attacked Ricardo Rodriguez, Divas champion Caitlyn and Tamina's Las Vegas Showgirls Lumberjill match ended in another no contest when the Lumberjills started brawling, Sheamus putting Damien Sandow through a table, and Team Hell No defeating Dolph Ziggler and a returning Chris Jericho in a strange Bedfellows match. RAW Roulette and the spin-off wheel that was frequently used would no longer be featured on any Monday Night specials, though it was rumored to make a comeback in 2021, but ultimately nothing came of it. It wouldn't be until several years later that the wheel would be brought back to WWE programming, but not only that, the Halloween Havoc name and theme would make a comeback as well. As on October 28, 2020, NXT would bring back the event as a special episode on USA. With Shotzi Blackheart serving as host, she would spin the infamous wheel to decide the fates of the superstars competing on the show. The spook-themed matches had a mix of stipulations from the original Havoc Wheel, such as Coal Miner's Glove, Blindfold, and Spinner's Choice, now labeled Shotzi's Choice. It also included WWE gimmick matches, such as Casket, Buried Alive, and Boiler Room Brawl. It even had the Chamber of Horrors match, a nice shout out to the absurd match from the '91 Havoc event. The show featured Johnny Gargano winning the North American Championship from Damian Priest in a Devil's Playground, or Falls Count Anywhere match. Dexter Lumis defeating Cameron Grimes with the assist of some friendly zombies in a Haunted House of Terror match, one of the forgotten cinematic matches during the pandemic era of WWE. And the main event saw Io Shirai retain her women's championship against Candice LeRae in a Tables, Ladders, and Scares match. Halloween Havoc has since remained as a yearly special or premium live event for the third brand, carrying over some of the previously mentioned goofiness from Havoc's past, while continuing to showcase the future of WWE. A few pre-taped segments had some superstars going to a haunted house. Several matches decided from the wheel ended up as an enjoyable variety of stipulations. It even had a significant moment or two, including the debut of Solo Sikoa in 2021, and I've heard he's been doing pretty good for himself since then. It's understandable why most consider the whole spin the wheel, make the deal gimmick of Halloween Havoc either as a concept with potential or one of many questionable decisions during early 90s WCW. I personally believe that as long as it's used sparingly and used to decide a proper stipulation for a major feud, the wheel can work well. While the presentation for Sting and Jake Roberts didn't have it start on the right foot, Vader and Cactus Jack was a better example of how it could be presented. When it was reintroduced as RAW Roulette, I felt WWE overused and wore out the gimmick, not just for their twist on it, deciding nearly every match on the show, but because it was most often used for comedy segments or matches that likely had nothing at stake. In my opinion, NXT has been the best example of how to utilize the Halloween Havoc wheel, with a handful of major gimmick matches not being too over the top, while also having a balance between great wrestling and embracing the Halloween aesthetic for the yearly events. As we're likely to see for this year's NXT Halloween Havoc, or have already seen by the time this video is finished, will continue to help play a part for some of the bigger matches taking place in Hershey. Despite the very odd and intriguing history it has, the Halloween Havoc wheel can have some enjoyable moments in matches, even the unintentionally hilarious ones, as it continues from being a short tradition from WCW that has had a second life in WWE during the spookiest season of the year.
All things are possible on All Hallows Eve. Chilling things like spin the wheel, make the deal. Just one haunting spin will lock Cactus Jack and Vader in combat when it lands on one of its many ghoulish, haunting matches.